Welcome back. You are watching News Center. Today, the Ministry of Heavy Industries, in fact, the place where I'm standing, the India Habitat Center in New Delhi, and right behind me in this hall, there is a brainstorming session on the Auto PLI scheme happening with all companies. The Minister for Heavy Industries, the Secretary for Heavy Industries, they're here, and they're trying to understand the issues that the companies are having with the Auto PLI scheme. Now, why is this happening? Because 85 auto companies had qualified for the PLI schemes in the automotive sector, and this is spread across OEMs and component manufacturers. Out of all these 85 companies, only 5 have so far applied for incentives. Only 2, that is Mahindra Group and Tata Motors, have got these incentives. The industry is concerned about the stringent testing criteria, which they say is delaying their applications. Secondly, they also want the domestic value addition criteria, which says that you should have 50% domestic value addition from year 1. Now, this should be relaxed and it should be spread over a 5-year period. Also, the third key request is extend the scheme from 2027, which is the final year, to 2028, because most of the applicants, almost 95% of them, have not been able to apply so far. Joining us right now is Mr. Arun Malhotra, automotive expert, and also Nikhil Bhatia, who's the co-founder of Hop Electric. I'll go across to him. Hop Electric is one of the companies which had qualified for the incentive scheme under the PLI. Give us a sense, Nikhil. Why are you here today? The biggest concerns, and why have you not been able to apply for incentives so far?
So we as Hop Electric qualified as a new non-investor champion OEM category. That means we do not have any automotive background, but as a young startup, we are very much inclined towards Make in India strategy and building up capacities at scale here in India. We represented to Ministry of Heavy Industries that other than the PLI part of the scheme, the entire back end of the automotive industry, right, type approval certificates, different AIS, BIS norms that keep on changing for safety standards, they need to be consistent for a little longer period of time so that young companies like us can build up investor confidence and bring in that capital to actually build up capacities here in India. Second thing we requested them is there are 2 testing agencies, ARA and ICAT, that are eligible for PLI qualifications, right? We requested them if they could add Natrexon and GRC also in that capacity, so that the burden from these 2 industries is a little lightened and we as young people do not have to wait in line for much longer.
Nikhil, is there also a worry in the industry after what has happened with the investigations into the FAME scheme? Now, there were very intense probes that happened. Even now, the government is trying to take back the money from the companies, some of them which had defaulted on the criteria. Has that somehow made some companies reluctant about the formula, the criteria that is there?
So I think companies are not reluctant about it. Ministry is a little sensitive about thing, and it's fair from their part, right? Incentives are being given to build up capacities here in India locally, and if companies are not complying to that and they are penalized for that, it's their fault. It's nobody else's fault. What we are requesting them is that we are ready to build up the capacities here in India and build up and sell to the entire globe, right? But they need to be more supportive throughout the entire process to at least the young OEMs who are trying to make a new mark in the industry.
All right. Yeah. Let me also go across to Arun Malhotra, automotive expert, who's joining us. Mr. Malhotra, we also spoke to Mr. Reggie Mithai, the director of the ARAI, a short while back, one of India's leading testing agencies. He was of the view that companies had been engaged on the PLI schemes for a very long time. This is nothing new to them. Today, they can't come and say that the 50% domestic value addition criteria needs to be relaxed and it has to be spread over a period of 5 years. All of this was known to the companies. What would you have to say on the reasons why companies have not applied so far? And is there any kind of relaxation which is actually needed?
So, here's a point. Certain criteria are clear, but the entire process, which is the entire, first of all, getting the SOPs cleared, getting it tested from the 2 agencies Nikhil Bhatia mentioned, then calculation of the domestic value addition. So there were the number of processes which are there, and there was a learning process involved. Both the companies were learning, the industry was learning, even the government was learning. So the process was not fast. I mean, Nikhil talked of the challenges of a new company, but even the large companies who understand the ecosystem very well, they also were not able to do it. So today, in the direct value addition, which is their domestic value addition, the agencies which took the ICAT and the ARI, the period was very, very long because there were some facts which are not clear at all. And certain things you understand when you get into the project, because the 50% DVA right from day one was a challenge. So there has been delay, and ideally it would have been better if there would be more collaboration, more meeting at the early stages. Today there's meetings happening and I'm sure there'll be some good announcements. And since nothing has moved for 1 year, effectively, industry is right in us asking for one more year. So that's the challenge statement which is there.
All right. Let me also get in Nikhil once again. Nikhil, there is also an extension being sought by 1 year. Also, the last date for applying for incentives, the industry wants an extension from September 2023 to the end of FY24. Now, why is that?
So what we are seeking from ministry is that the start period, right, determined sales value start period is from 2022. It should be rather from the date of declaration of SOPs from the ministry, right? Because before that, nothing is eligible. Right?
And that was on what date?
This was 27th April 2023. So I think 1 year buffer from that space, and then let's say I decide like everything falls in place, right? We start putting up capital now. We have to put up somewhere close to 1100 crores in next 2 years. Materializing all of that capital and then churning out sales to gain incentive will take me another year and a half more. Right? That means a 3 years long threshold. So it is important for us to convince the investor side also, right, that the incentive, if the scheme ends in 2026-27, right, the incentive period should also be extended by 3 years, right, so that at least the entire capitalization of plant machinery we should be able to process the output and claim incentives from that.
Right,
yeah.
right. Mr. Bhatia, there were also a larger number of OEMs, the likes of Bharat Forge, the likes of Ather, which could not qualify or could not meet the criteria under the automotive PLI scheme. Do you think it's important to make some changes so that a larger number of players could benefit?
Definitely, because the way it was done, especially in case of electric vehicles, where you talked of domestic value addition, a lot of companies in electric vehicles are selling at a price below the ex-factory price. I mean, the cost of material is higher than that. Or if you put the DVA criteria on that, they have to meet a much higher DVA norm. So effectively, you have to take cognizance of the reality. And probably large companies, I mean, as you mentioned, 2 large companies which are respected, regarded, and who are making a very serious attempt on this entire journey of getting advanced technologies. I think we should have an open mind to as far as this is concerned.
Right. Nikhil, I would also like to ask you, are you hopeful of any kind of relaxations from the government? What would be your number one ask?
So we are seeking a time extension, one, right? Start of determined sales value period rather from 2022, but from 2023 after the DV SOPs have been announced. And incentive claim period should be extended beyond a certain threshold after the scheme expires, so that we can claim on that. Other than that, DVA requirement is almost fair. It's not like it's not achievable. 50% domestic value addition, if you have to build up capacity in India, it is an achievable number.
And what is the delay with testing agencies?
So delay in testing agencies is not, first level of delay was that the SOP definition was created almost after 1 year was gone in the period, right? Second is still a lot of things, it's an entirely new ecosystem, advanced automotive technologies are entirely new ecosystem. A lot of things are evolving as we go forward. So it's not delay so as to say that, but yes, let's say there's a new AIS battery safety standard. It's essential for safety of the product. But if my motorcycle has to meet that standard, I again have to go back to the testing agency to get the type approval certificate. Once I get the type approval certificate, then only I can apply for DVA. That means I am again losing a 6-month cycle for that, right? 3 months for type approval, 3 months for DVA, and that loss of 6 months means I cannot claim any incentives for that period. So I think we should be the working period buffer should be there in the entire ecosystem. Yeah.
All right. Mr. Mehrotra, it has also been considered within the government whether these PLI schemes, whether it is the ACC PLI or the automotive PLI, they can be opened up again, or maybe companies like Tesla can be included in it somehow or the other. Do you think certain modifications can be made in order to make it more attractive for the automotive industry?
See, actually, the number of companies who already qualified is large enough. I mean, you talked about 85 companies. So by that logic, there is not much scope of opening it up because you're not able to do justice to this 85 even. Only 5, as you mentioned, they have been got a clearance, and only some 2 have actually applied for the encashment. So, but Tesla is a special case. So if it's a dynamic world ecosystem. So if you see certain opportunities and you see that you want to make India a global manufacturing hub, which the government is very serious about, we'll have to have open mind. But whatever policies you make for them, or whatever you make for a foreign player, that is same has to be applicable for the domestic players. It's a level playing field. So there's nothing on it. The only challenge which I see is the budget earmarks is 26,000 crores. which anyway it was overshooting, I mean, the proposals. So the more you add, I mean, are you going to increase that budget also? Because ideally people are asking for extension of 1 year, which I think ideally would happen. So that's another area which government has to consider, because this 26,000 crores for advanced automobile parts components or their vehicles might not be sufficient at this point of time.
Right. And one of the asks is also to expand the product list, which is also already quite wide when it comes to the component manufacturers as well. We'll leave it there for the moment, but Mr. Mehrotra and Nikhil, thank you very much for joining us here on News Center, telling us about the industry concerns on the auto PLI schemes, why many applicants have not gone ahead and applied for incentives so far. Let's see what the government does in the days to come. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.